All right, everyone. Welcome back to the Redbeard Outdoors podcast. We've got two great guests here from Garmin, and they've got some amazing gear that you guys have heard me talk about on the podcast. I use the InReach Mini. There's multiple other options out there for communication. I also wear the Instinct on a daily basis, and you've heard me talk about that as well as to why I went that route rather than other smartwatches. So today I just want to introduce Rehan and Griffin. This is the first time I get a chat with Griffin, but I met Rehan at the ATA show this year, and he knows so much about different gear. He loves hunting, just went spearfishing, so we might get into that a little bit here. And then Griffin is someone that we're trying to throw into the deep end of the pool and get him into the outdoors. He's accomplished some great things that I'll let each of you guys kind of introduce yourselves and what you've accomplished, Griffin, and then Rehan, what you love about the outdoors. But guys, I guess we'll start with Rehan. Who are you, and why did we even chat at ATA?
Yeah, well, I'm Rehan Nana. I do kind of PR media for Garmin. I've been a lifelong hunter from the Midwest, but travel to hunt quite a bit as well. Always been a huge Garmin fan. My background, a lot of it is going to be kind of within sporting dogs, and that's how I originally came to Garmin. But then it just kind of, when you're at Garmin, you get to use so many different cool things that I'm kind of a tech guy now. We did meet at ATA, and I was thinking about it, like, I think that's still the cool thing about those shows, right? Like, you randomly, I think, stopped by the booth and like we just started chatting, and that's such the cool thing about ATA and SHOT, being able to meet so many like-minded people and just have good conversations, I guess. So I think, does that kind of hit it, or did I miss something?
No, yeah, it was funny. I won't lie. When we so Jake was there with me, and Jake, people that listen, they know Jake from First Form. Him and I look similar. He's about 1.5 inches taller than me, but we could pass as brothers easily. And so we're walking around, and it's funny because one of the sales guys comes up and he's like listening to me talk about your gear, and he was like, "Hey, you're doing my job for me." And I'm like, "Well, I use your stuff. I've done my research. I know what I want to use and what I'm looking at." And so he was like, "Well, let me know if I have any questions, or if you have any questions." And then as we're walking out, I think you were just kind of hanging out, drinking a Coke or something like that. And I was like, "I'm just going to talk to everyone here in the booth." And I was like, "Hey, cool name," because you had your name tag. I was like, "How do you pronounce your name?" I like breaking the ice with awkward conversations. So,
Totally.
and that's pretty much it. And then we just went to chatting about how you love, hunting and the outdoors, and how you got with Garmin. So I think you hit it on the head.
Well, yeah, and it's also interesting at those shows. Like, I love it when, like, being at those shows, that when people like yourself come up and like pretty much school me on stuff at Garmin. Like, there's so many people that are just such dedicated, especially, and at that show, like we were talking about the Instinct. I hadn't been to ATA in about 2 years. And one of the things that I was like, God, I'm seeing those Instincts just everywhere. And I loved it because Instinct, like you, Instinct has always been one of those watches that I've always just been a huge fan of.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, I went to that from the G-Shock, and I didn't want a smart watch because the batteries and all that. And then I saw the Instinct, and I was like, oh, it's a G-Shock with a little bit of smart tech to it. So yeah, why not? But yeah, I think that's why I can beat up on it and not feel bad about it. It doesn't have, all the fancy stuff that you worry about breaking. So,
yeah,
but
that's it.
Exactly. And then Griffin, who are you? Let people know who this guy is that's sitting here with the nice haircut going on. Better than mine anyway.
Better than mine too.
That's why I wear hats.
Someone had to go no hat. I was happy to do it. Yes, my name's Griffin. Great to be on. Not, probably don't come with the background of hunting too much, but grew up an athlete, was a swimmer at the University of Missouri. So was very fortunate to take an athletic ability to some pretty cool levels. And then for the past 6 months, been working with Rehan on the PR team here at Garmin, kind of learning and figuring out the cool things that Garmin tech can do and how it can apply to some really solid fitness, how it can enhance fitness even from a D1 level.
Yeah, exactly. That's a big deal. Any kind of sport at college level is intense, and then you add that you were a D1 athlete on top of that. What were some of the events that you swam?
So I was a backstroker and flyer. I had some success in the 200-meter backstroke. I was able to kind compete at a few U.S. Opens, Olympic trials in 2016, and quite a few national meets, SEC championships, and those types of meets. So was able to take a 200-meter backstroke and make a pretty fun career out of it.
Yeah. I'm going to say it's funny because I know another guy that he went on to be a power lifter for, I guess he did Olympic lifts, and he's so humble about it. You guys, you're the same way. You're like, oh yeah, swim in the Olympic trials. It's whatever, that's a huge deal, man. I can float and I can kind of swim, like, to be able to go up to the Olympic level. That's pretty intense, dude. So that's awesome. Congratulations on that. So let's, I guess, kind of get started here with, when it comes to fitness, which I imagine you still train, you probably don't swim as intensely as before, but working at Garmin, what are some things that you've noticed? I mean, what are your tools that you use for fitness when it comes to your style of training?
Totally. And then I'll say, I felt that I deserved a little bit of a break post athletes, being an athlete in college. So I think I let myself go a little bit there. But when I got back to Garmin, it was cool because when I threw the watch on, the Instinct, like you guys, I know you use the Instinct, but most of the watches have a lot of the same fitness features. But basically what you can do with it to keep you accountable and keep you on track with your workouts, the metrics that you can get into during a workout, like your calorie burning, your VO2 max, all of those good things will keep you really locked into a workout, make sure you're giving it your best. But then at the end of the day, kind of seeing a digital log of all the workouts you're doing in a week, keeping you on track and just keeping it pushing down the road. You had that because sports, because being an athlete was my number one job in college, that kind of came natural. When it wasn't my number one job, it kind of went to the side a little bit. So having a watch there, it's kind of like an accountability partner.
Exactly. No, I really like it too. So I'm kind of a nerd when it comes to stuff like that and data, measurables, things like that. And so for me, being able to, my biggest things that I wanted and why, I snagged the Instinct, because there's some other amazing watches out there that I've looked at as well. They're pretty cool. They're a little bit fancier. To the point where they can even do, ballistics, if you get to that level of the watches. But, with the Instinct, I love the simplicity of it. I loved, again, not feeling like I couldn't take it in the backcountry with me, but also, it works day to day. And the heart rate monitor is great. That's something that I really enjoy seeing, especially over time, being able to see what your resting heart rate is, if you're able to push that limit. So one day you may train, and then a year from now, you're doing that same training and you're like, my heart rate's not getting over 100. I need to probably step it up a little bit, and measuring things like that. So for me, it's the steps, the heart rate. Steps are another big thing too that I talk to people about, because it's not necessarily that it's going to be 100% accurate. You literally took 15,000 steps today. It's more about the movement of your body, like how much you're moving. You can measure the movement that you have one day to the next and see your kind of average. And so when I do challenges in my group on Facebook, I love to say, hey, add 1,000 or 2,000 steps this month, and see how that changes your life, changes your mentality and how you feel. So those are kind of two of the bigger ones. I know those are very simple baseline. Then you were talking about VO2 max, and it goes you can go way down the rabbit hole with some of these data points. And I love it. Because it is something measurable. So that's cool. So did you say you use the Instinct, or is there another one oh, sorry, go ahead, Rehan.
Well, I was going to say, you brought, I think one of the things with Instinct, I think it's really interesting. I talk to a lot of people. I see Instinct in a lot of different places, and especially within the outdoor world. And I always go and talk to those people. And I always find it interesting why people get into Instinct specific, right? There's always something. And like you said, there's so many different things, but two that you hit on, I think are really important. One is going to be the easily digestible information, right? I feel like Instinct, and not to say that the other watches don't do a great job of this as well, but it's like something about an Instinct that it makes everything, like, you feel like it's easily digestible. And two examples of that I go back to is there's actually two gun shops like relatively close to here, and two, like, they're 50 plus years old, have Instincts on. And I've talked to both of them. I'm like, why did you get those? And they're like, man, it felt like it was easy to use, and I'm helping it to just get back in shape and all those different things. So I thought, one, that's kind of like a common thread that you hear with people with this particular watch. The other one, and I like pointing this out, like, people, if you look at like a Garmin Phoenix, that's going to be our flagship outdoor watch, right? And it's got so much to it. The Instinct, and especially as you get into like the Instinct 2 Solar, has so many of those top line features. But one of the things off the bat that people notice is it's a monochromatic display, right? And people are like, why did you do that? And there's a little insight to the background of it, is that it's an intentionally designed lower powered platform, right? A monochromatic display. And so when you see the solar, essentially what the engineers did with this watch is work on two sides of the power equation. One being power, usage, and then the power input. And so with this watch, since it's a lower power platform, adding in solar charging, you just see these crazy battery gains. And that's one of the reasons I've always loved it from the outdoor perspective, where it's like, you don't have to worry about charging it, really. I mean, like, if you get enough sunlight with the Instinct 2 Solar, it was a milestone for Garmin, where it was the first time that if you get enough solar charging throughout the course of the day, you could have unlimited battery life in smartwatch mode, which is just crazy from that side. And I will say the third thing is, it's same thing. Like, we spend our life outdoors, and it's like, it's light, it's tough, it's rugged. You don't have to worry about it. That's a really nice thing. So sorry to interject on that one.
No, you're good. No, I really appreciate you highlighting that, because in all reality, so I had the Instinct 1 till recently, and it wasn't solar. And what I noticed was, even with text messages coming in, the door unlocking, locking, all of my messages that come in my phone, I was usually getting around still about a week battery. Right. 7 days. And that was without the solar charging, and that was with all the messages coming in, blowing up my watch. And then when I would go get unplugged, where I wasn't getting any of those messages, I was kind of testing it, and I would fully charge it, just like I do all my electronics before I go out there. And I would get close to sometimes a little over 2 weeks on that one battery life, which it's hard to find another watch that is as simple and I mean, it looks, again, rugged like a G-Shock, and get that kind of battery life out of it. And so it's something that for me, I really liked. And now I'm going to be testing out, a little bit more with the solar one. And I've already noticed it holds a battery even longer than the previous one.
One thing I do like adding for people, a lot of times people ask, like, why is there a battery fluctuation like week to week? And one of the things is, if you are doing activities that are requiring a GPS just from across the board is a power consumptive technology, right? It doesn't matter what company. And so I always like pointing that out for, like, Instincts, but also for, like, InReaches for other GPS based activities. If you're using that, GPS is just a power consumptive. So you can adjust it on the fly. If you're doing more or less. So that's just something I like putting out for people just to remember.
Yeah. No, for sure. Yeah. The GPS portion. And then, or if you're recording, you're actually clicking to record certain workouts rather than just keeping track of your heart rate throughout the day. All of those things definitely add to the fluctuation of the battery. But it's still hard to find another smartwatch that would match the battery life of the Garmin watches.
Yeah. And I heard somebody say, like, one of the kind of the reasons why I thought it was a really good explanation. Somebody here said it. You see, like, with a lot of Garmin products, like battery life, like, we put a lot of focus into that. And the best way I think I heard it described was, nobody likes starting a road trip and looking down and seeing they've got a quarter tank of gas in the car, and that's kind of the same thing with any electronic technology, especially electronics in the outdoors, which is, nobody likes being like, oh man, I've got another thing to think about as I am going out doing X, Y, or Z.
Exactly. Yeah, it's something you don't want to have to stress about. And I would agree that, it's nice to have these electronics. They seem to enhance the outdoors experience a little bit more. But at the same time, you don't want to have to stress over it. So it's good to find something that, you're not concerned with getting wet or fogging up or, the battery dying on you while you're out there, or whatever it may be. I would definitely agree with that 100%. But
You said a word that I use all the time, where I look at the technology. There's in my mind, especially, it's like I worked in conservation, outdoors, hunting. That's been kind of my life, and like I think about technology in the outdoors a lot, right? And what I always kind of think about and describe is there's two types of technology in the outdoors. The first is going to be technology that hampers an outdoor experience, right? So if I take my nephew deer hunting and he's on his phone playing games, trying to kill time to get back to home to play computer games, that's technology hampering an outdoor experience. But technologies like Garmin has in the outdoors, like InReach, watches that help us navigate, help us keep us safe, keep us more efficient. Like all of those things are technologies that enhance our outdoor experience. And it's something that, as more people adapt into them and find it and love it, it's just, for me, it's always been using this technology as a way to enjoy, and it's as simply as that, enhance my outdoor experience, whatever it is I may be doing.
Exactly. I 100% agree with that. That's something that's really, really important, is you want to be able to have that experience enhanced, right? You don't want to be stressing about it, worrying about it, et cetera. And I feel like the few Garmin products, I haven't delved down and gone and gotten all of the products, but the ones that I have definitely helped out in those experiences. And we'll get into, the InReach and the communication devices here in a little bit, but so Griffin, you said you've gone out and done some hiking, gotten on some mountains, et cetera. What's been your experience with the outdoors, and what are you looking to get into?
Definitely. I'd say the extent of my outdoors, probably that much. I think some really good hikes that have caught my attention, at least caught my interest in the outdoors. So I'm certainly looking to get into more hikes, backpacking, things like that. My full disclosure, my dad is from Queens, New York City. So I think there's probably a reason I didn't grow up hunting, but the outdoors is definitely something that runs in a little bit of my family, and that we can enjoy it. So I do know, after taking on, probably a little naively, taking on some mountains, some hikes that were a little out of my reach without training, that it can be a little bit exhausting. It can be a little bit tiring. So I will say, the importance of staying fit, healthy, and active, and how that can enhance enjoying the outdoors, kind of goes hand in hand. So it makes sense to me, and it's definitely something that I'm excited to keep up my fitness so that I can enjoy more hikes, go on more high level hikes, things like that, higher peaks.
Yeah, exactly. And you hit on something that's key there too, because you're not going to go. Yes, it helps to go and swim miles at a time. That will help your cardiovascular, system. But at the same time, it's not the same as having 20, 25 pounds on your back or more, depending on what you're doing, and walking up a mountain. It works completely different muscles, and those can get fatigued, even though your cardiovascular system may be good. It's still something that you kind of have to train for, almost specifically. It's hard to train for the mountains. It really is. I mean, it's hard to mimic that. Even a stair stepper with a backpack and heavy weight, it does okay, but it's still not the same as getting up and going and getting on the mountains, because the way your feet, hit the ground, there's deadfall, there's other things that you have to climb over, you have to move around. Some days there's going to be mud, some days it's going to be icy. Like it's just so many things that you can't train for in a gym, but you can do your best. So I guess what are some things that you've been doing to get better at hiking so that you can get out there and enjoy it a little bit more?
Totally. Yeah, you hit it spot on, because on those, like you said, on those hikes, you have to have some ankle flexibility. You have to be able to adapt to ever-changing grounds, rocks moving, all that good stuff. So definitely, weight training is huge. Like you said, hitting the stair stepper is good. I like putting the treadmill on the incline and walking up that way. Although inclines, again, they're not going to be as steep as some mountains. So You can't mimic it exactly, but you can get some good training in. And then on a daily basis, like I said, with that mobility, flexibility, I think that's a huge part of keeping your body healthy so that you can continue to train, but then also being super adaptable to, what a hike, what a trek might bring you. So mobility is huge. With Instinct, with Garmin watches, you can do so much. There's even yoga activities, so you can keep track of those types of yoga, stretching, even breath work, working on stress, things like that. So I guess along with that physical aspect, working on the mental aspect of being mentally tough to take on a hike, workout, things like that.
Yeah. So, oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, Griffin, we were talking, Griffin brought something up that it's like, for me, it's like I'm outdoors all the time, like hunting, whatever I can do. But he said something that was really interesting and how it applied here that I had never really thought about. For me, it's like I go light, go far, go fast. And it doesn't, and I didn't think about it, but what he said was, you need to prep on the front end of that. Like you really need to prep on the front end of that, because if you're not stopping halfway through it, you're not stopping partway through it. It's just how you're going to experience the rest of whatever it is. Like if you're 4 days into an 8-day hunt and you're completely gassed, the balance of the 4 days is going to be horrible, but you're not going to stop it. You're just not going to enjoy it, which I thought was a really salient point for this side of it, Griffin.
No,
Yeah.
absolutely.
No.
Like you said it. Once you're in it, you're in it. So you might as well prepare and get your body ready to be in it the best way possible.
Yeah. Yeah. And, a couple of things that we've said too is enjoy your outdoor experience more. That's another thing. You can suffer through it. I mean, just about anyone, if you got the right mindset, you could suffer through an 8-day hunt and when you're tired, day 4. But you're not going to get the same experience that if you prepare for it. And something else too that I talk a lot about, and I've got a couple of friends in the physical therapy realm. I was actually looking at going into physical therapy as a career choice. And so I like to tell and preach to people, prepare rather than repair. You're going to be so much better off. And, if you're putting those small investments in a day-to-day basis, even if your goal isn't to go hike Mount Everest, right? Maybe your goal is to, when you're a grandparent, you just don't want to be in pain or need help off the floor after playing with your grandkids. There's so many grandparents out there that, and even sometimes I've seen that with my grandparents where it takes them a little bit longer to get up off the floor. Obviously, your body's going to age, but you want to put those investments in today, right? Everyone talks about the stock market and investing your money, even if it is $5 a day or a couple, taking your coffee money and investing it. Well, why don't you do that with your health? Why don't you go out and go for a 45-minute walk every day? Everyone could do a 45-minute walk while you're scrolling your phone. Go walk. You can do that. Like as long as you're on the sidewalk, you're not going to get run over. You can go scroll your phone, but move your body, right? And so, things like that are the little investments that I think, going back to the devices, it's key to be able to track your movement. And again, going back to the simplicity of keeping track of your steps. That's something that is understandable for many people. And so to be able to have an app on your phone that you can go back to and say, okay, over the last week, I've increased X amount, or over the last week, I was down. Why was that? How am I feeling? Kind of reevaluate how things are with your health and your fitness levels. And then again, you can make it as complicated as you want, and you can go and you can track your CrossFit workouts, your swims, your hikes, your biking, all of that stuff can get tracked on the app. So again, I love how scalable it is. I love things that are scalable because I deal with people that are from all walks of life, from, again, single mom that just has time to go to the park and walk laps to people that are, D1 athletes that I get to talk to and like to track and nerd out over their data. So it's cool that you can scale it that way.
Griffin, weren't you saying that you didn't, like when you were at Mizzou, you weren't really using tech as much? Like, weren't you telling me that?
Yeah, I think, I won't say back in my day because it wasn't too long ago. I don't want to age myself, but we definitely had the resources to dive into certain things. it wasn't on your wrist, but we had resources to dive into certain things. And that was just secondhand to me. That was kind of just the nature of, and the blessing of being at a Division I school. But I will say, looking back on it, if I did have something on my wrist keeping me honest about my sleep, about my calorie output, probably could have taken that to a new level. And then, like I said, I think I may have mentioned this before, but now that I'm out of that and I don't have those resources with me, having this on my wrist right now, it's like I'm back into having that accountability and those resources super easy.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And the other thing too, so people out there listening can understand, like if you go download the Garmin app, you definitely could take a look at that and see what all it has to offer. But it breaks down your sleep, right? It tells you, again, I don't know, and we could, I'm sure, go down the tech rabbit hole on that as well as to how it measures that, but it's pretty dang accurate. And it's something that you could lie to yourself and be like, oh, I got 8 hours of sleep, when in reality it wasn't restful sleep or, whatever it may be. So I love that it tracks the stress. And it's funny to me because I'll look back and I'm like, man, this last week, I feel like I just got beat over the head. And I look at it and I'm like, oh, well, I wasn't recharging the body battery that it talks about. I wasn't recharging and having restful sleep. And then there's other times where I'll sleep maybe a little bit less than normal, but I'll have more restful sleep. So I'm feeling better, so just, it's cool that it tracks all of those things.
Yeah, I find it fascinating. And it's like, as I've gotten older, and especially as I've had a daughter, and like looking into the future, like I need to be there and around and healthy for her. Those are all things that taking into consideration. But again, going back to the easy side of it is like, I love that body battery. I love the body battery. Like it's just such a quick snapshot. The stress score, like it, keeping that in check, all of those different things, and to have it delivered up to you through the Connect app so quick and easy and digestible. Griffin's been saying accountant, you've been saying accountable, and I find that that's 100% true. When you have those numbers in front of you, you can't lie to yourself. You can't cheat. Can't cheat yourself on that one.
Exactly. No matter how much you may want to, and that goes with nutrition as well. I tell people to track and they're like, why do I need to, I don't want to put my food in. I'm like, look, I understand what you're saying, but if you're not losing weight, you're eating more calories than you're burning. It's that simple. I mean, I know there's maybe other options that you have to look into, but let's track your food first and make sure that you are eating less calories than you're burning. And that's how you're going to lose weight. If you're not losing weight, there's going to be a bag of chips or the whole family-sized bag of Doritos that you decided to not tell me about. There's something there, right? And so tracking stuff like that, with your health information and data is definitely key to performing better. And so let's kind of dive into that a little bit here, eventually, because there's two main items that I use when I talk to people about Garmin stuff. I use the watch, which is my daily driver. And then I have these two. Well, this one I haven't taken out yet in the backcountry. This one interested me a lot. So the Messenger. But cool. This one I've used over the last couple of years is the Garmin Mini. And now there's a Garmin Mini 2, which has even better battery life. I think this one gets up to the 50 hours on it's like a 30 or hour minute tracker, something like that.
Yeah. So two things with that. So the Mini 2 essentially triples the battery life, and I think it's up to 2 weeks of battery life, and that's 24-hour battery life, and that's continuous. That's continuous, right? Some people are like, does that mean it's 12 hours? It's like, no, that's 24 hours a day, but that's also in the default 10-minute track mode, right? So if it's recording or sending 10-minute track. The other thing with that is you can actually adjust that you can make that a 30-minute default track, and when that happens, you get up to a month of battery life on the Mini 2. Right. I mean, it just, like I said, the battery life side of it just keeps getting better and better and better.
Yeah, because this one's 50 on the 10-minute tracker, which my wife likes the 10-minute tracker when I'm out and she can log into the app from home. And if I'm in a specific spot for too long, sure enough, I get a text. You okay? And I'm like, yes, we stopped for lunch. It's okay.
That's perfect. Like, that's part of the reason I love that. And so that's the map share page. And there's two sides of that coin that I think are really interesting, where it's and again, it goes back to that technology in the outdoors where, and I especially find this important for the inReach, where it's like, you don't have to use technology if you don't want it, but it's there if you need it. So you can set up that tracking mode and say, you know what, I don't ever want to use this inReach, but I'm going to, have map share on. And if you're moving and you're supposed to be moving, great. But if you're not moving like you described and you're supposed to be moving, somebody can reach out to you. But then if something, God forbid something does happen, you do have that SOS capability directly on there, but you don't have to use it if you don't want to, but it's there if you need it. So yeah, the SOS.
It's right here. And you can't press it. Like, I'm putting pressure on that for people looking at. You can't press it until you open up the actual little button here. If I had fingernails, I could do it. There we go. So it's pretty hard to open up there, but there's the button for the SOS. Yeah.
And Jonathan, something that I just like telling people like what happens. So with an inReach, it's two-way SMS, so two-way text communication, and SOS. And there's always going to be kind of core pillars of what an inReach is between all the different devices. But those are two that are really to highlight. And since we're on the SOS button there, it works on something called the Iridium system. It's a satellite system, and it's global coverage. So wherever you are in the world, you have the ability to send and receive messages, but then also hit an SOS if you need it. And when you hit that SOS, three things take place essentially simultaneously. Garmin Response is a 24-hour staffed global response center, and it works with people all around the world to help coordinate if there is an SOS, right? So if you're in Utah or if you're in, Europe somewhere. So one thing is they'll reach out to you directly. They will reach out and just to see what's going on and to see how what the situation is. They will contact the emergency service for the best for that location. And then they will also contact your emergency contacts. So it's kind of a three-pronged approach. And once they'll pass it off to the most appropriate response team, whatever it may be, but they'll stay involved until the incident is resolved. So that's a little bit about the SOS side of that.
No, yeah, and that's awesome. To be honest with you, it's allowed me to be out without cell phone service for a lot longer because my wife definitely appreciates that feature. She's still not happy necessarily that I'm gone and things could happen, and that polar bear could come out of nowhere in the Utah mountains. All that stuff that they they're concerned about. Yeah. But it really is. It's almost a little bit of a comfort. I mean, it is a comfort because this is on me at all times, right? I've got this thing clipped inside my backpack because I always worry about things falling off. So I've got it in the lid of my backpack, so it has enough signal that I can send a text from my phone without getting it out. But I know where it's at, and my backpack's always on me. If my backpack's not on me, this is on my bino harness or it's clipped to my belt. So for me, it's a safety feature because I don't do anything too crazy, but you could step off of deadfall and your leg just decides to break. Like, it happens, unfortunately.
Here's what I've learned, in the 5 years that I've been working with inReach. Nobody wakes up in the morning thinking they're going to have an emergency in the afternoon. And it's that simple, it's that simple. And one of the other things that people don't think about that I like pointing out in this situation is if you're out of cell service for like 3 days, everything can be fine with you. But what happens if there's an emergency at home and somebody needs to get in contact with you, right? And that happened to an uncle of mine, and it's not a good situation. So it's like, it's two-way communication. And that's what I think is such a critical aspect about inReach, be able to reach out at any time,
Yeah, no, for sure. That's something that can be really important too. I know some people that have had similar experiences where they're pretty rugged, outdoorsy people. And I'm trying to remember his name, but he told his story. He was in was it Australia or something like that? And I mean, again, he's been hunting outdoors all his life. He's been in the outback his entire life. So he's a rugged dude. And he ended up getting stuck in a situation that he couldn't get out of. And so it's things like that, like what you said about people don't wake up in the morning thinking they're going to have an emergency. you just don't. And if you do, just go ahead and go to the hospital so you don't have to, you don't have to cause anyone the gas money to take you there. But in all reality, that's a big deal. But yeah, that safety feature of the SOS, I had no idea that the new one has a month if you put it on, 30 minutes of tracking. That's awesome. That's amazing. Battery life.
So the new one, that's the Mini 2, has that, but that the Messenger, which you have right now, that's a month in the default track mode. That has even better battery life. It just keeps going on that one. And, it's easy, and I brought it up, and it's easy to talk about the SOS feature of it, but 99.9% of people are never going to have to use that. And so the other thing I just like pointing out, where it's like, do you know, and again, this goes back to, have a young family now. It's like, it's so nice just at the end of the day to be able to reach out and say goodnight and to like check in, all of those different things. And InReach is so much more than just, you can do trip planning. You've got the Explorer app where you can actually see the mapping on it, and you see it integrated into so many different things, dedicated dog units, you've got off-roading units, like so much different stuff. But there's so much to it. And again, for me, it always just comes back to, it's like, hey, well, what I tell people is like, when you sign up for it, Garmin's unique because you can have a month-to-month service, right? So if you only want to use it 1 month, 2 months, that's fine. But what I tell people is, once you start using it, you don't really want to stop using it, because you start finding different things. Like, even I keep one in my car, like if I, just for road trips, stuff, like everything. It goes back to what Garmin's mission statement. I always love Garmin's mission statement. It's like products that become essential part of our customers' lives. And I think it's such a good example of a product that has become essential. And I'll speak for myself, but for so many outdoors people as well, an essential thing for what we do and how we experience what we love, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, exactly. I would agree with that 100%. That's a big deal to be able to have that communication. And that's why I went with the Messenger, is the one that I've got here instead of the Instinct, or sorry, the Garmin Mini InReach 2, is because of that, the battery life on it. I don't personally use the GPS. Now, you can use the little mini screen here and use the GPS on this one. There's also a bigger handheld as well, if you're a traditional GPS kind of person. But I really like this feature because, again, it's so simplistic. It's an even smaller screen. It's got even more battery life, which is already insane battery life with the Mini 2. But this Messenger, I'm excited to get this one out in the mountains because it's really not even that much bigger than the Mini. Oh, there we go on the screen there. Yeah. It's not that much bigger than the Mini.
So if you look at that one, and that's the most recent InReach device, and really with that one, you have something where it's like, like I said, there's core tenets of InReach devices, and it's really like, which one is right for you? Do you want on-screen mapping? Do you want an in-vehicle? Do you want, what is it? And one of the really unique things about that Messenger is it's purpose-built. It's a communications-focused device, right? It's so easy to use. There's a new Messenger app with it where you can do group texting for people, which is unique for Garmin. It easily integrates, easy setup. And like I said, for people who aren't as concerned about, I need to, have all these different waypoints, routes, different things like that, this is a perfect one. A Messenger is a perfect device where it's like, what I want to be able to keep in contact, but it's still got tracking on it. It's still got track back, all of those different things. And, one of the interesting thing you mentioned on your backpack, that you clip it on your backpack. I don't know if you've done this yet, but it works within what's called the Garmin ecosystem. So you can pair your InReach device into your watch, right? And for listeners, and you probably do this, but for listeners who don't know, and so there can be emergencies within emergencies, right? Where if you fall and for some reason you cannot reach the back of your pack, you can actually trigger an SOS directly off of your watch, right? But you can also, from, again, just the everyday use of it, send and receive messages directly from the watch, all those different things. So it's just part of that Garmin ecosystem that is just trying to make lives easier.
Yeah, no, exactly. Exactly. And that's definitely something I've done is pair it up with my other devices as well. And it really is pretty seamless. I know, I really haven't had any issues with getting signal. There are things that people need to be aware of, such as if you're in a deep canyon, it seems like you have to wait for the satellite to get over that canyon to be able to get that message out. Other than that, I've never had an issue with messages getting out. It doesn't matter if you're in trees, out of trees, wherever you are. I've never had an issue. And I agree with you there as far as, go ahead.
No, please continue.
Okay. With what you hit on with the family aspect of it too. So yes, I joke about my wife being concerned. I mean, she's worried when our kids cross the street sometimes. So, I joke about that, but at the same time, it is nice. Like when you're out there, you've had a long day of elk hunting, which is, my big thing that I really enjoy. You're out there in the tent, you're kind of reflecting on your day. You're realizing some things you could have done different, whatever. And then you start thinking about, man, I could be home, putting my kids to bed. I could be whatever, catching up on work. There's so many things that will pop up in your mind, and being able to reach out and just send a text to your wife, to your kids, to let them know that you're thinking about them, makes a huge difference. It definitely makes it a little bit easier to stay out there for a longer period of time compared to if you don't have a way to communicate. I know personally, I would be even more worried about things like what you said, where, maybe something happened at home that I need to get home for. Things along those lines are definitely, it takes it off your plate. You don't have to think about it anymore if you're able to have that communication.
Yeah, 100% on that one. All around it, it's just, again, it kind of going back to what I was saying about Instinct, like people use it for different reasons, and it's an expandable product. It's a product that kind of meets you at what you want and what you want to do with it. So I do find it pretty interesting, and yeah, it's within that. So
yeah, for sure. And we've got Griffin over here figuring all these things out. What he's going to start using when he goes on his Everest hike.
You'll appreciate it. I brought in a venison burger for him today.
Oh, sweet. So, there we go. Slowly but surely.
I haven't told him yet, but I'm going to be getting him into the hunt here this season. So get ready for that, Griffin.
For sure.
I wonder if spearfishing would be more up Griffin's alley.
No, I mean, so here's the deal. I'd like to bring that up again just because I've got a beard. I've shaved my beard for the first time, and I don't know how long, because I was spearfishing, and I was just trying to figure that out. And it was just, water was just getting in my mask when I was snorkeling and stuff like that. But yeah, I did just recently go spearfishing, and that was such a cool thing. What I had done like 10 years ago, I don't know if you've ever done this, but have you ever done dark house spearing?
Mm-mm.
Right, where it's like, okay, so it's essentially like ice fishing, but with a trident, and you're like throwing a trident through the ice with or through the water for pike and stuff like that. And I did that like 10 years ago, and I was like, this is awesome, but I don't live in a place where I can do this all the time. And spearfishing was on a bucket list for me, and I finally got to do that, and it was such a cool experience. Like if you live by the ocean, I hope everybody's doing that, because I live in Kansas and we don't have anything.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's pretty awesome. Again, I would have to probably shave as well, because we went snorkeling. We talked about this before we started recording, but I was getting that salt water up in my nose, and my nose burned for the next worst. 2 days. Oh man, it's terrible.
It's the worst.
Yeah, but I can't shave it. Literally, it's my brand. So
well, it's like like I said, I haven't shaved for I don't know how long, and it's like I looked in the mirror, and my wife looked at me. Like the best part was my baby, like my 16-month-old little girl, like after she came back in, and she like walked up, and then she just like paused and kind of like started backing away. Like, who is that person? So
yeah. Oh yeah. No, my kids have never seen me without a beard. My kids have never seen me without a beard. So, and my wife told me she won't kiss me if I shave. So apparently I've got baby face. But yeah, I don't know. Have you guys ever seen that meme? I love sending that meme to people when they're like, hey, just shave, or they'll bet me, they're like, hey, shave your beard, if you lose the bet, whatever. and I'll send him that meme of like this big burly masculine man. He's got a beard, and then he puts the cream on, he shaves, and then he like washes his face, and it pops out a baby. Like,
Yeah.
like that would be me. I can't shave.
Jonathan, I'm just going to tell you, that's a horrible image right now. So don't want to think about that again.
Exactly. So, talking about getting into hunting again, the outdoors, there's something else too that's out, and my bow shop loves them. I have personally yet to run one, but the Garmin Zero sight. So, it started back in 2018, I believe.
Yep. So the Garmin Zero sight, it's really interesting. I think that if you look, to give like a little bit of history on it, like Garmin, a lot of times I think people within the hunting world relate to the Garmin products through a singular product, right? So it could be like, well, I hunt with a handheld GPS or an inReach, or I've got, I run dogs and I run an alpha unit. But it's really, I've always found it fascinating how large an offering Garmin has within the hunt world. I mean, really since the beginning of Garmin. And also an interesting like fact I like telling people are always like, what is Garmin? What does it even mean? And it's actually the combination of the two founders' names. So Gary Burrell and Min Kao, so Garmin. So that's what that comes from. But
That's awesome.
some of the first products were handheld GPSs. People were using that, to go hunting from the very get-go. You see like integration of dedicated hunt products, I think with kind of the acquisition of Tritronics, which took place, I think, in 2011. And those were the combination of GPS dog tracking with e-collar technologies. But what's really cool, I think, is over the past, since really 2018, you've seen some incredible products come down almost every year. And to your point, starting with the Garmin Zero, that's an auto-ranging digital bow sight it's a single pin rangefinder, with angle compensation, everything on it. It's incredible. It's an incredible unit. That took place in 2018. Then we came out with the X1i crossbow scope. Sorry, no, I think it was trap shooting trainer, which is for trap shooting, which for me, I shoot a lot of shotguns. It's incredible. It just demystifies what happens when the shot leaves the end of your barrel. Came out with a crossbow scope, and then, I know it sounds like science fiction. Every time I try to describe it to people, I'm like, I know it's like saying we invented a glass spaceship that goes to the moon, but it's true. But and then we did the A1i Pro, which is the new updated bow sight for that one. And again, going back to how people relate to it, I find it just an incredible thing, because it's essentially what it does is it's combining a rangefinder with the sight, right? So, and it removes you no longer have to gap anything like that, because you're ranging, and then once you range, it will drop a single pin. It does, like I said, angle compensation, everything like that, angle compensation, distance, and it gives you a single pin. And for me, the thing that I always found amazing about it was what I always say is I'm an average archer at best, but it gave me the confidence of knowing that is the exact pin I should be shooting. And even more important with some of the stuff that, that's been put in there, it's like, it's such a great form check of what you do, where it's like, if you're camping, all that stuff, it's got levels, just to make sure that again, it goes back to those metrics and data of you can't cheat numbers and data when it's right in front of your face.
Yeah, no. And something else. So I've messed around with it enough, cause I help my bow shop out. And I've sold a couple of them, so I know enough about it to be a little dangerous with it. But it's pretty cool, because it's that single pin accuracy with the ability to mix the rangefinder. So when people that I'm sure most of the people that listen to me are into archery, so you understand this. But if you're not, you need to understand the animal walks out in front of you. You've ranged some different spots. Usually you range the animal again. That's what I do, is I'll range it before I draw. You draw back, and then the animal moves. If you don't have multiple pins, you have to let down, or you have to have trained your holdover. But generally, like if an elk takes 2 or 3 steps, that's another 10 to 15 feet that they could have gone the other way. And so you have to let down, re-range, draw back again. And it's not necessarily it's an inconvenience, but the animal could have seen you at that point. And then you've lost the opportunity completely. And so for those, Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I was going to say the thing that's so nice about the zero on that one, you can just do that on the fly, right? There's a
Hmm.
little trigger button, on your riser that you press, and it's like you can just keep pressing it as that thing is walking. So
Yep.
again, it just comes back to that, like you have that confidence of exactly what that pin should be.
Yep. And then it also has the ability too, if you do like a triple tap or something where you could have a 3 or 4 pin
Yeah,
pop up.
yeah. You just have
So if
to
you want to have
tap it
that
once,
fixed
and
pin.
it'll. Yeah. So if you're in a situation where it's you don't want to do that range, um, you just tap it once, and it'll get back over to your fixed pins. And the other thing with the setup on this new one is also just so fast, so easy. Um, I highly recommend people check it out.
Yeah. And obviously you need to check your states, because there's some states that don't allow electronics on sites, which it would include like a black light if you use a black light on your site to light up your fiber optics a little bit better. But yeah,
Yeah.
the states that do allow it, it's an amazing tool.
Yeah. And you kind of pointed out, but one of the things I like to point out within that is that that is not a reflection on the Garmin Zero itself. That
No.
a lot of times that just applies to all electronics on bows, whether it be cameras, anything like that.
Oh yeah.
And again, all of that comes back down to how do you relate to it? And one of the ways that I also relate to it is, again, it comes back for me where it's like affording that animal precision aiming. Do you know what I mean? That's one of the tenets that it always comes back for me, and I always harp on it. It's when you send it, there's always going to be times that you wish you could take an arrow back, and this
Hmm.
is a site that really, I believe, really helps eliminate that.
Yeah. No, for sure. And that's why I preach, train daily, at least a couple reps every single day. It doesn't have to be at distance every single day, but getting that technique down, there's so many things that can go wrong with archery that it's hard to explain unless you've been shooting for a while. You understand if you even anchor in the wrong spot, your arrow is going to be off. And so
Yeah,
that site eliminates a lot of the issues of, again, the inconvenience of having to re-range. It allows you to be more precise. So you're not hitting too low, too high, injuring an animal. And like you said, the only reason I point out to check, if your state allows you to get one, is just because I don't want people going out and buying Garmin sites being
sure,
like, it's
sure,
the best
sure.
thing ever. But at the same time, there's states like Idaho, for example, and maybe I shouldn't say exactly because I don't know, don't quote me on this, but they used to not allow mechanicals, and I think they do now, mechanical broadheads. I still think that they don't allow lighted nocks. That's considered an electronic, which again, for me, there's no benefit. It doesn't help you cheat in hunting. It allows you to find your arrow quicker. But, so again, it's not a reflection on the Garmin site. It's more of the I'll just say the dumb politicians that don't know anything about hunting. So,
Well,
that's, oh, go ahead.
well, no, I was going to say you touched on something that was interesting. Where one of the things that's also it has a laser locate feature, and
Mhm.
so I don't know if you're familiar. For listeners who aren't familiar with it, something I also find fascinating with it, where the site will actually store ranged, from the pin for where you sent it, right? And you can transfer that GPS coordinate either to a watch that has mapping on it or to a handheld. And so if you get out of the
Hmm.
standard or wherever you go, you can go directly down to that spot to start tracking. But one of the other things that I say is, and this is going to be around from Midwest whitetails, we'll say it's like if you hit an animal and it runs 200 yards down a timber line and ducks in, you can actually range where that is and go immediately over to where you last saw that animal and start immediately tracking from there. And so it's just those little things that help, like I said, enhance that outdoor experience.
Yeah, no, for sure. And then you can also, something I don't think I've mentioned, I know I've thought it, but what you do is you can plug in your information, basically your ballistics, your data from your arrow, your draw weight, and all that stuff, your feet per second, and that's where it comes up with the the pin that's going to pop up in your site housing. So that's pretty sweet.
Yeah, it was one of the things that you notice on the A1 Pro, the newest one is we put micro adjustable rails on it. And I mentioned it's such a fast setup on it, and that's one of the things you can just input, all right, speed, draw length stuff, and it will actually like you kind of get on paper 10, then you set at 20, and then you validate at 40. And once you just validate at 40, you're set all the way until what the max range would be for you in particular. So the setup of it is just so easy and so accurate. It's really kind of an incredible unit.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's definitely really impressive. And now Griffin's like, and I'm going to get into spearfishing now. I'm going to get into bow hunting. I'm going to get into all the stuff. I don't know enough about bird hunting. I know that's a big passion of yours, Rehan, and I'm sure you'll drag Griffin into that as well. But when I do see dogs out here, whether it be guys, even just so there's pursuit tags for bears, and then there's actually where you can go out and hunt bears. But anytime I've seen dogs, they're all running Garmin collars, Garmin handhelds. And I can see like a lot of these guys have the relationship almost like their children with their dogs. And so when they send them after a cougar or a bear, and I'm sure it's similar with birds, you probably see the dogs a little bit better with the birds. Exact. But right. Yeah. You see them a little bit better. There's a little less risk involved, but being able to track your dogs through the mountains, as they're going after cougars and bears, as you work on that, predator management portion of hunting, that's a big deal. And like I said, everyone that I've seen, they all use Garmin. They all run Garmin stuff.
I think, and this goes from long before when I was here, it's because people trust Garmin. And I always say it's before I worked at Garmin, I ran Garmin because I trusted it. I needed to be able to trust a unit, and I trusted Garmin, and I still do with all of this stuff, because I think you mentioned it early in the show. It's like we've got so much stuff that we've got to keep track of when we're outdoors that if you can remove that, like you don't keep pieces of gear in your kit if they're fickle, if they don't work well, if you don't trust them. And Garmin has always earned kind of a place, like I said, even before I was an employee here. And so, yeah, it is that relationship. And those dogs, it's something I like bringing up to kind of dog people, because I think it's an interesting hunting concept where it's what most people don't think about with hunting with dogs is, like if you're out deer hunting, for example, or elk hunting, it's you and one other animal. If you're out hunting with dogs, it's you, one species, you and another species, a dog, that have to work together in order to hunt a third species, which is like it rarely happens in nature. And that's kind of why a lot of times it's so cool. That's why you see like dog guys like just go all in it, is because it's you have to work with another and communicate and train another species in order to hunt a third species.
Yep. No, exactly.
Yeah.
That's a good way of putting it, for sure. And again, Garmin does a really good job, at least from what I've seen. I've never run that personally, so I can't personally vouch for that. But anyone that I know that has, they absolutely love the handheld and the dog collars and being able to communicate with their dogs better.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's awesome. And I think we've hit on all the gear that I personally use, and I'm going to be doing a review coming out here pretty soon on both of those products that I use. And then, so that's what I'm going to be hitting on here pretty soon, guys. So look forward to that. I really appreciate you guys' time, Rehan and Griffin. You guys do amazing things over there at Garmin. I look forward to continuing building this relationship and giving you guys feedback, as well as you guys teaching me stuff, because there's obviously things about the stuff that I use, the gear that I run, that I could still learn about. So if people want to find you guys on social media, ask you guys questions, reach out to you or anything, where can they find you?
I'll go ahead and say, well, first, all of Garmin's information you can find on Garmin.com for any of the products we talked about today. If anybody has any questions, feel free to email me, rehan.nana@garmin.com. That's probably going to be the best way to get a hold of me. Griffin?
Yeah, same here. Griffin.schetzel@garmin.com. Quick email. Exactly what Rehan said. We have our media relations email as well. So any questions, anything like that, happy to help out.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, I appreciate that, guys. Anything you want to leave the listeners with before we we get out of here?
No, I just want to say thanks so much for having us on. It's great, spending more time talking with you. And anybody has any questions, please reach out. And yeah, stay safe out there.
Perfect. About you, Griffin, you want to leave anything with the audience?
I'm learning a lot, so hopefully the audience is as well. But yeah, no, just like Rehan said, appreciate you having us on, and definitely excited to see both brands grow here together.
Sweet. Well, I appreciate it. Thanks so much for your time, guys. And as you guys well know, what I always say, get out, live your life, and love it.